can just do it? Are we ready to go?
Usually we don't, I mean, yeah, we can call a work session to order, or, do you wanna do a pledge, or, usually we do not, usually it's a very
Informal.
informal meeting. Hand it over to Lauren.
All right, well, thank you very, very, very much. As we were talking this morning, we really haven't been in front of the board as a group since the fall of 2019. So it's good to get back in front of you all as far as our road meeting. Thank you for having us. Thank you for helping us put this back together. So with that, I'll jump right in. Like, this is an informal thing, so I have a presentation, but what we're really wanting is open dialogue and discussion on all the topics here. So if you would, Chris, just kind of our quick agenda, real broad topics, but we can jump to the next one. So with that, this was an interesting year for us as far as snow removal. I think Paul was pretty happy with what happened this year. You can see this is our costs for our snow removal that Lori put together for us. Kinda, our average is somewhere around $900,000, but this year we were down to $600,000 for our snow and ice control, assuming we don't get any big snow event tonight. So the question was, well, if you guys aren't plowing snow, what do you guys do? I think we've probably had the best year ever as far as out brushing, cutting trees, clearing out the right of way. And if you drive out in the area, our county roads, it's pretty evident what these guys were doing this winter, and they did a fantastic job. Luckily, we've only had probably 1 or 2 phone calls of concerned citizens that we actually went out and visited with as far as the removal of the trees, but overall, it went very, very well. So, good job, maintenance department. Next slide. Thank you, Chris. In front of you is a bound copy of our annual report. This is something that Lori puts together on an annual basis, which actually says the county engineer will prepare it by statute, but Lori, our highway accountant, does a fantastic job putting it together. She puts us together in counterpart with our annual audit from Clifton Larson Allen. With that, you're gonna see the white pages in front is basically a summary of what we did, both construction, purchases, shop improvements, everything we did for the previous year. She summarizes in those white pages then our expenses for all of our equipment, our expenses for all of our roadway maintenance that we do throughout the year as far as patching, ice, snow removal, all this type of activities. And then the summary in the back is the blue pages of all our construction projects that are ones that we closed out from the previous year, ones that we'd actually constructed that year, and any future projects we're working on, so we can track those expenses throughout the life of those contracts. So by statute, we're required to bring it forth to the county board and show it to you. I realize that's a lot of information to look at. Once we get this report done, we sign it off and send it to the state, and then they send us our final 10% or 5% of maintenance money.
40%,
It's 40%?
yeah.
What do they hold off though, is it?
They give us 50,
It's 50, 40, and then 10,
Yeah.
and 10. So we get our final 10% of our maintenance, state aid maintenance money with that. So, if you read it throughout your time, we have typically present it to the board, and then we actually do post it on our Public Works website. So, if there's no other questions, we'll jump on to the next topic. So this is our actual cash balance that we keep track of basically since 2006 when I became engineer. Our cash value at the end of the year was at a pretty low dollar value, and at that point in time, obviously expenses were a lot lower than they are now. But it was noted by our auditors at that time that we should aggressively seek or find ways to bring that up to a higher value. I think back then we were at 2 to 3% operating, and the last couple of years we were down to 3 to 4 months worth of reserves. And last year we had a very, very interesting year, and our cash reserves were up right around $600,000. So if we move to the next slide, I'll do a quick analysis of what happened there. You can see here is basically our total funds throughout those fiscal years. And you can see the difference from the previous year was $600,000. Now, the question is, where do we come up with $600,000? What happened was in 2020, we had an additional $416,000 of state aid or Highway User Transportation Distribution Fund funds that we did not anticipate getting through the budget process. We saw an additional $70,000 of fees for services. We had an additional $153,000 of state aid construction reimbursement, which means we basically almost finalized out the previous year's contract at the end of fiscal year 2019, but didn't receive reimbursement until fiscal year 2020. So you'll see a decrease in 2019 of expenditures, but we got reimbursed from the state the year after. So it kind of flip-flops a high and low year, but as it averages out, it equals zero. We received a $30,000 MCIT dividend reimbursement and some additional small revenue amounts of $5,000, equating to roughly $676,000 of additional revenue that we didn't anticipate for that fiscal year. Looking at our expenditures, it was plus and minus on different sections of our budget, but basically we quote-unquote overspent or saw an additional expenses of roughly $65,000. Comparing those two, basically it equates to roughly $610,000-ish of additional revenue for that fiscal year. Questions, concerns? I know that's a lot to throw at you.
Lauren, how do we do on a sales tax for that?
I'm glad you asked that. So if we jump about 2-3 slides to the future, and then we'll come back to that. I'm glad you brought that up. As the pandemic occurred last year, Commissioner Newman actually reached out to me and says, how are we tracking? You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
How are we tracking for our local option sales tax? So we put together this graph. The pink or light red is fiscal year 2019 revenues by month for our local option sales tax. And you can see the one in orange is our local option sales tax revenue. And basically every month we saw a larger revenue than we did the previous year. We actually had a 20% increase in our local option sales tax revenue last year, give or take about 20%. Why? We're not really sure, but we do know people stayed home. People didn't travel to St. Cloud. People didn't travel to cities. People didn't travel to Brainerd, Alec. They stayed home and shopped local. And I think this is the result of what happened. People still needed to get to the hardware store. They still needed to go to the Dollar Generals, the places local, spend what they need to do to survive. And the local option sales tax benefited from that. So I'm glad you asked that question. So if you want to go back a couple slides, if you would please, Chris. We talked about that large increase in our state aid distribution. And that little blue sheet you see there, the little glossy one, that's actually we received from MnDOT. That's how the state receives the Highway User Transportation Distribution Fund. This is the quote-unquote gas tax that we get to help fund our operations at Public Works. And you can see slowly over time that dollar value has increased for the Todd County distribution. And in fiscal year 2019, we saw a very large increase because there was just additional money in the fund. And in 2015, they redid the way the User Transportation Distribution Fund was kind of divvied up for the state. And Todd County saw big benefits, you'll see those 2 years, because of the way that's done. And I can kind of get into it more in depth if you want, but it really gets kind of technical. It's basically based on the needs of our system. So with that, we always budget and predict 1 year behind. So when we were preparing the budget for fiscal year 2020 right here, we use 2019 numbers because we don't know if it's going to go up or down. I hate to say, oh, it's going to be a 5% increase next year, you know, and then, wow, it's a 5% decrease. Then what do we do at Public Works? So we'll always try to use the previous year's number and budget with a 0% increase. So we saw that increase that year. Well, when the pandemic happened in 2020, I didn't really want to use 2020 numbers to predict 2021 revenues, because we already knew people were traveling less. People were using less gas. They weren't going anywhere. So we still use 2019 numbers to predict 2021. Now that we know the pandemic is nearing the end, hopefully, knock on wood, life is getting back to normal. People are back buying cars, back traveling, using more gas. So we're going to be using in fiscal year 2022 the 2021 state aid revenue. Are you following me on that? Kind of gets a little confusing.
You don't think you go up to the 2000 or 2020?
No, we will not.
You will not.
Because it was a 15% increase from the previous year. And as the pandemic was happening, we were hearing reports from the state, budget 15% lower than you were the previous year. Now, it actually came in at 9% lower. So that's why we always budget a little bit behind. And we've done that so we basically stay safe. We have a conservative approach to our budgeting process.
Lauren, down the road, this is unpredictable, obviously, but, they're pushing this new electric car thing. So eventually, down the road, I would assume we're gonna get a large number of them. What does that do to the gas tax part in the formula? And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but are you guys talking about that as engineers?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Throughout the County Engineers Association, which I am a member of, I no longer sit on the board of directors as the District 3 rep, because I've done my term in that. But I do keep up on those meetings, and they're aggressively talking about it, but no one really has a good answer yet. Obviously, it has to come from the state legislature, what they want to do. But if they're not buying gas, I think it'd be really hard to track. Let's say you bought an electric vehicle. Where do you charge it up? Do you charge it up at your house?
Well, that's the big question too.
Do you charge it up
Yeah.
at your friend's house, your daughter's house, whatever? How do you track that? So I'm guessing in time, the only true solution might be a user-based system, where every year you report your mileage for that vehicle when you do your tabs. So the more miles you drive, the more tax you'll pay. That's kind of what the discussions I've heard where they're going to go with it. Whether that happens, I don't know, but we'll still have to find some revenue source to keep up the road systems.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking, and I'm thinking down the road that they're gonna push it back onto the local governments to raise their levies to maintain the roads, which I don't want to happen, but I'm thinking that's a possibility, so.
I think you said it best. I don't have a crystal
Yeah,
ball.
I know.
And thus, when you say that, I think always budgeting a little bit
Yeah,
behind,
Yeah, it's smart, yeah.
it keeps us in a safe position, so. So if you want to go to the next slide, please, Chris. This gets a lot of numbers here, but basically what I want to show you is basically here's our total distribution at Todd County from the state aid gas tax, and we get roughly $5.5 million. We did in 2021. That's broken down into two categories: construction and maintenance. Maintenance is basically what we use on a daily basis to help operate the Public Works Department. Helps pay some of the salaries, helps buy some of the equipment, helps pay some of the other day-to-day costs of Public Works. Construction basically is when we do a state aid construction project, both on the municipal and rural system. Just on the state aid system, those roads designated 1 through 56, we use those dollars. We break that back down, we have a municipal and regular system, regular being the rural system. You can see it's basically breakdown in the same system, maintenance construction and maintenance construction, for a $5 million total on the rural system and a $400,000 on the urban or municipal system. So, and Lori does a great job every year of tracking where all those numbers go. And you kind of can see basically over time, it kind of goes up and down every year. But over time, you know, we've seen in the last 15 years, we've seen basically a $2.5 million increase in our state aid allotment. So if we want to jump the next couple slides over, we talked about the local option sales tax. This is an update of where we are with the projects we have listed. In 2014, the board approved the local option sales tax, and as part of that process, we as the county needed to designate which projects we were going to use that money for. And that money could only be used for those projects. So throughout the years, we've put these projects on our 5-year construction plan. We've aggressively went after them, and Wade's done a good job of managing those and delivering those projects. And you can see we've completed a good share of them. We've got a couple going this year. One on County Road 92, which is a project on the South County line down in Randy's district there that we're partnering with Stearns County on. They're actually leading the charge on that. County Road 102 north of Gray Eagle. And then we've got a couple other projects in the other years that we'll be discussing here in the next slide. So if we go to the next slide, next two slides, excuse me. No, go back to that one. You can see this is basically the balance of the local option sales tax throughout the years. First year, 20,000. The end of this year, we're going to see $800,000, $900,000 balance in the local option sales tax account. Reason being, it's going to be that amount because we have a very, very large project in Gary's district next year on County Road 73, where we have to reclaim that whole road and replace all the pipes. So that's not going to deplete our account, but it's really going to draw it down to a more manageable amount. The local option sales tax is not a separate account. It's not a separate account like the road and bridge account. It's included money in our road and bridge fund. So we do have to keep track of it, but it's always a portion of our budget process. Going to the next slide. So things to think about as we move forward with the local option sales tax. Fiscal year 2022, like I said, we have a very large project on County Road 73. We're actually in pre-design on that right now, starting to prepare the plans and getting cost estimates for that. 2023, we have a project on County Road 66 up in Commissioner Becker's district that project needs to be actually added to the list so we can help fund that project. 2024, we'd like to put the overlay of the Lake Wobegon Trail on that. At the last time we met, back in the fall of 2019, we discussed whether or not we could use local option sales tax money to help fund that. And as I read through the statutes and talked to different people, obviously if it's the board's wish, they could add that as a transportation project to use to help fund that improvement. And I think that'd be a very good use of those dollars. So with that being said, we've already talked internally about what to do with this, because basically once the projects on the previous list have been completed, the tax by statute has to sunset or quit. So basically we have projects in the future we'd really like to add to that list, and our recommendation is next year, if we move to the next slide, we'd like to actually set a public hearing sometime in the summer of 2022 to bring back this discussion to the board and to say, okay, here's where we were, here's where we are, and here's where we'd like to be in the future as far as re-implementing the local option sales tax. And how that would happen is we would schedule a public hearing, can be done right at a normal county board meeting. I'd go through a presentation, which I already actually have most of it prepared. I just have to update a lot of numbers for next year. And then have the board decide on whether or not they want to basically turn it off or keep the sales tax moving forward. At that point in time, you know, we can discuss where we want to go with those dollars, whether or not we want to add additional projects, keep paving existing roads, existing paved roads, keep graveling existing gravel roads, or add projects like the County Road 89s, the County Roads 81s, the County Road 95s down in your district, to add to that list if we wanna pave those roads is using those dollars. The benefit of using these dollars is that we don't have to rely on the local levy to help fund those projects. Does that seem like a pretty reasonable approach moving forward?
We've got the timeline to wait until next year for this.
Absolutely, yep. The projects listed for next year are on the existing list.
Okay.
When we hit 2022 or 2023, and 24, no, excuse me, 23 and 24, we're gonna have to make a decision on whether to turn it off or turn it on. So next year would be the ideal time to do that. And if we do re-implement it we have that public hearing in the summer of 2022, the board officially acts on it at a public, or a board meeting in August, September. That gives us enough time to tell the state they need 1/4 of a year's time or fiscal year to keep the tax going. So if we let them know by mid-September, basically the tax would just keep rolling.
Keep going.
Yep, that's why we chose that date. Seem all right? Next slide. Thank you, Chris. So with this, you'll see is basically our update of our equipment inventory master sheet. Basically every piece of heavy equipment we have at Public Works. It goes right down from our motor graders to our tandem trucks, tractor mowers, loaders, pickup trucks, scroll down one more. Even our miscellaneous equipment like our routers, our tar kettles, our even bigger pieces of equipment in our shop like our air conditioning recharger, even right basically down to our chainsaws and pole saws that we have. We use this information to track basically the mileage and the age of the machine, and using that information, then we prepare the next slide, which is basically our 5 or 6 year replacement plan that we use then to add into our budget to help budget for the replacement of these machines. And if you notice, basically in the total cost for each of these fiscal years, this year was a budget of right around $445,000. And you can see in each next year's, we really do not see a very large increase. Basically in a 5-year span, we're really only requesting an increase of about $25,000. And in the equipment world, that's pretty good. Equipment tends to go up at 3 to 5% per year. So one thing of notice, I wanted to make the board aware, is that this year, I believe, the board made a very wise choice. You allowed us to purchase that used motor grader. We replaced an old Cat motor grader from 2011, but we purchased that used John Deere. You remember that back in December? That saved us basically $43,000 in our budget that we have left over. With that additional money, if we want to move to the next slide, you can see we've did the plow trucks, we did the replacement of the grader. We'd like to add to the list the replacement of this 1-ton flatbed truck that we use in our maintenance division. The history with this piece of equipment back in 2013, we received this from the sheriff's office. They had it as part of a seizure or something. I'm not quite sure how that works. But basically, we received it from the sheriff's office for $500. And we thought, I don't know, if we use it, we don't. I'm not sure if we'll ever really use it. We use this almost on a daily basis, right, Paul? I mean, it's really a workhorse for us. Basically, we can put in, since it's a dual cab, put in, 2, 3, 4 guys in there, take one truck out to the job site. With this flatbed, we can load stuff on there. We use it to haul our tar kettle, our patching equipment. It's got the power to haul stuff. It's really a very valuable tool for us in our operations. So with that, we'd actually like to replace it this year. So we went out to our state bid process and looked at some replacements. And we can basically get a 1-ton gas truck for right around $33,000. Reaching out to some of our local suppliers, they can build us a custom basic bed. And Arnson down in St. Rose, can do that for us for right around $8,000 and basically come in at, under budget at $41,000. So we'd like to bring that back to the board for consideration here, at one of the next upcoming meetings.
Is that a dump box? No.
No, it's, actually, we have another 1 ton with the dump box.
Okay.
But, yeah, dump box would put us over budget.
Okay.
But in the past, this has been serving our purposes quite well.
Questions on that? With the state bid, I think if you went to the local dealers, I don't know if you'd touch a 1 ton dual cab for $33,000. I don't understand the state bid process totally, how they can offer those prices, but boy, that's a steal of a deal if you ask me,
It'd be twice that.
probably. And with the mileage we use on this, this thing's gonna last us 15, 20 years. It won't look new in 20 years, but it'll be well used.
Is this truck a gas or a diesel?
Our current one is a diesel, right?
Yes, it is.
So I'm glad you asked that. If you look here at our options below, if we go to a diesel, it really bumps us up over that dollar value. So we looked at that gas option, and actually the city of Long Prairie owns a gas truck similar to this, and they basically had no problems with it. It still have a lot of the power. I mean, we're not gonna be doing fully loaded 80 miles an hour down the interstate with this stuff. A lot of the time it stays running, so, and Paul can speak on this, but basically we think a gas engine's gonna function better if it's basically idling than a diesel engine sitting there idling for hours and hours and hours on end.
If you know anything about, Gary, you know too, your tractors nowadays use, DEF.
Yep.
Fluid in this, and that would be just another problem to look into the future for emissions. The gas would be simpler and I think more cost effective. I mean, yeah, you're gonna put gas in it, but diesel, these engines aren't cheap
Expensive.
anymore. Emissions is a big part of it. So I feel it would be better just to go with the gas.
Great question, I'm glad you asked that. Next slide, Chris. So, I've got bad news to bring to the board. I'm gonna bring you back in time a little bit. In 2010, the state paid for every county to get involved in a program to provide a county road safety plan. We went through the process, it took about a year. The board approved the county road safety plan. With that, then we could use that plan to go out and aggressively apply for and receive what we call HSIP money. HSIP stands for Highway Safety Improvement Program, federal dollars to fund safety projects on the county road system. Throughout the years, we decided that these ground-in wet reflective stripes, these edge line stripes where they ground in a groove on the edge of the road and put a high performing epoxy paint in that trench basically, is the type of project we wanted to fund. We could only fund projects on routes or segments of roads that have star rankings. They ranked every single segment throughout the county and gave it a 0 to 5 ranking. 0-star projects would never get funded, but 5-star ones, 4-star ones would. So throughout time, throughout the last, I'd say 11 to 12 years, if we go to the next slide, please, Chris. We've went out and aggressively sought after and received basically 8 or 9 federal projects. And they've brought in roughly $2 million of federal dollars to fund these enhancement safety projects. This year we're delivering one for 35 miles. We've got another one scheduled next year for 30 miles. But unfortunately, our last two applications have been denied. Reason being, if we go to the next slide, we've done all the segments that have 3 to 5 stars. They no longer are funding our 1, 0, and 2-star segments. They said it's no longer eligible. Now, if some of these roads get repaved and the rules stay the same, we can reapply. But unfortunately, we've completed all the segments in the county road safety plan.
Couple questions, Lauren.
Yes.
What happened to the zero death, safety program that we were working towards?
Still exists.
Which the reflective, striping would be a good plus for that.
Hands down it does.
The other question I have is, once it's grooved, how long does it stay grooved? Can you repaint inside that groove?
We have not done that yet, but there are a few routes that we are going to be doing that in the near future, and yes, we can.
Okay, and how long does that groove typically last?
Right now, what's that last one? Probably pushing 10 years, Wade?
Well, I think the first one we did was 2012, and that was on two over there.
Yeah, so some of them
So those,
get overlaid before that.
yeah, so.
We're like, if I made this year's or next year's ones, we're gonna be doing the year after we pave them. So that groove will be there for 20 to 25 years, and then we can use that groove to reapply the paint.
And then who rates the highways? Is that the federal or state?
That gave us the star rankings.
Yeah.
At that point in time, a consultant that was chosen by the state did it for every single county. Now, there are a few counties that have done a second level plan. We are on the list in the future to get another plan, but for some reason, we're, haven't been chosen yet. They can't do them all in 1 year.
Well, you know what I've always said about that, it is a good safety feature for, that fog line, and, you know, it even leaves a little hum when you hit it with your tires. There's a hum with your tires that
Yep.
say, okay, I'm a little bit too far over. I just think it's one of the best safety things we can have, but evidently the federal government thinks that, we should only do so many roads.
Federal government agrees that, but they won't allow us to do all of them.
Well,
But we will continue to try to get as much money as we can through this program, because I agree with you, Commissioner Kirker, that is one of the best things we've put on our system. And the hum is good enough that you just hear it in your vehicle,
yeah,
but you don't hear it like if you live there.
the rumble strips
Yeah.
or whatever.
So if you're sitting in your house, you're not gonna hear it.
Yeah, I'd like to see them do the center line too, because it does indicate that you're a little bit over too close to the center line.
And on a foggy or wet day, that
Yep.
helps. We wanna go to the next one, so I'm glad you brought that up. Since some of these, we're no longer getting into that striping and not using those federal dollars, we looked at, what it would take to stripe all of our roads. Since we're not using the federal dollars anymore, we have to basically put more money back into our striping program to keep up our stripes, because I do believe and agree with you that edge line is a critical piece of our roadway safety system. So if we were to stripe every single road, all the whites, all the yellows, it would cost us roughly at current prices right around $420,000 per year. If we break that down to a 4-year system, it's right around $104,000. If we wait every 4 years to stripe a road, the stripes are gone. Traffic, weather, Hall's plowing operations, it sandblasts them right off the road. Kind of our magic year, we think, is right around 3 years. If we use the current system, the current cost, we need about $140,000 to restripe every road every year. Our current budget in fiscal year 2021 is right around, Lori, watch out, there's a bug right there in front of you.
Oh, it's a hornet, actually. I saw it fly.
I don't want you to get,
Killer bee.
You're supposed to swat it.
Yeah,
so our current budget in 2021 is $90,000. And in fiscal year 2022, we'll be recommending to the finance committee to move that up to $140,000. So we keep that 3-year rotation. Want to go to the next one? Public Works new shop savings account. Basically, the red line here is the annual deposit the board puts into that savings account. And it kind of fluctuated the first couple of years and basically now has basically plateaued at that $219,000, and this is done by resolution. You can see at the end of this fiscal year, 2021, we'll have a very, very good start to a good, basically, down payment for a new shop, just shy of $1.4 million. And you can see, obviously, that's gonna increase every year. Looking to the future, you know, we've talked about different locations and where we're gonna put a new shop. The one with the Jenny O Turkey Store, wood shavings plant, that kind of fell through, which is okay. Doesn't mean the doors are totally closed. But if we look to the future, I looked at how do we fund the construction of a new shop? If we go to the next slide, and this is just for discussion, I thought about currently the county has some debt that we make debt payments every year as the county, in the county overall budget. If we go to the next slide, remember the debt. If we assumed this year or last year, a new shop would cost roughly $5 million, brand new shop. Using 3% inflation, that line would continue to go up. At our current savings rate, the one in gray, that line would go up. But they never ever meet, which means we would have to go back in debt or borrow to do the project. However, if we go to the next slide, using some math and some assumptions, if we moved some of that debt, when that debt payment comes due in fiscal year 2027, and move that debt over to a new savings deposit amount, went from basically $219 per year to roughly $617, our savings account would increase dramatically every year. And if we put that into a slide, our old savings account in gray, our new savings account in yellow, basically we could fund the construction of a new public works facility without raising the levy in fiscal year 2035, if we move that money over. Something to consider for the future. Barb, you're smiling.
I am, because either way, I don't think we have to move it into your account. I think we can hold it within the county's account, and that way it would be available to whatever project was seen deemed at that time.
Sure.
You know, if we keep that money in the general fund, if all of a sudden we have a roof repair or we see deemed, and that way we can use that money for whatever project we need in the county, where if we deemed it just solely for yours, if we have another catastrophe, we'd have to borrow for that. By keeping it in the general fund, it's available for a shop, it would be available for what other project
No,
would need.
You make an excellent
Yeah.
point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that balance in public works, it's there by resolution, but at any
But
point
it
in
is
time,
in a,
it's in the general fund right now.
Yeah.
But it's designated for that facility.
For
But
that.
at any point in time, the board could say, you know what, we need it elsewhere, and it's the discretion of the board to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if we wanted to in the future, this would be a way to help fund that without raising the local levy.
Lauren, do you have till 2035 in the building you're in now?
Do we have,
Well, is it gonna be all right to be in there for that many years?
we don't know. We keep doing small improvements that we can.
Yeah.
You know, we painted the fuel tank, we replaced some doors, we fixed the roof when we need to, little stuff. But it's getting tight, you know, sooner or later our boiler's gonna quit again, things like that.
Lauren, and I had sent this message to the county board too. I know we attempted to buy a piece of property, but I really think we should, this is my feelings, that we should get aggressive in trying to purchase our land now. We have enough money to get our land located and locked in so that we are prepared for shovel-ready when we wanna start doing something. Land values are not going down. They're going up, so I think it would be wise for us to aggressively pursue, finding a location.
Madam Chair, I have to agree with Commissioner Kircher on that. You know, and how many acres are we looking for? You know, are we looking for 10, 15, 20?
We sit on 5 now.
Okay,
10 would be
10 would be,
ideal,
yep,
20 would be preferred.
okay.
Or 10, I should say 10 would make it a lot better, 20 would be even better because it gives us more of a buffer.
Okay, and then somewhere within close to the city limits of Long Prairie, correct?
We would like to be somewhat close.
Right.
Somewhere near 71 because it provides us that quick corridor up and down south to north,
Mhm.
and then provides us a central area for our southern district where we just basically have 2 shops. That way we could close Little Sock and close Long Prairie, but still provide superior snow removal in the winter, as far as timing.
So would the facility be like the size of Douglas counties?
I don't think it would be as big, but it would be
Similar,
pretty substantial.
okay.
Because it would have to house all of our administration, it'd have to house our maintenance, our, mechanic bays, consolidate 3 more pieces of equipment out of Little Stock, and all that takes space.
Well, Randy brings up a good point, because we have meetings over in Douglas County a lot. And they have built a meeting room at their Public Works, facility, which I think was a very good idea. It's a large enough meeting where you can have large groups in there, and they can split it in half if they wanna have 2 meetings. I think that, in our floor plan, we should look at that, because this county is in dire need of places to facilitate training, meetings, whatever else. We don't have the capacity, especially now with COVID. Were really cornered. We had no area to go really, and training is important. Law enforcement, you guys,
Yeah.
Public health, all that needs training. So that wouldn't be my advice, but that's just me again, so.
Having the acreage out in a rural setting provides us the room to build a facility, but also provide parking.
Right.
So for those big training events, so. I like those ideas and suggestions. So hearing that, and I'm glad you guys said that, we'll continually aggressively try to find another spot. There are a few in my mind, but nothing is for sale. So we'd really have to basically reach out to individuals to see if sale is even a possibility. So I can take that and move forward with that as a recommendation. Going to the next one. Demolition landfill. Now you're gonna ask, what is Public Works doing out of demolition landfill? Good question. Chris McCon and Jeremy have reached out to me, that the demolition landfill actually has a pile of recycled concrete, basically right here. Here's the entrance off of County Road 5, you go to the south, wrap around. Here's the face of the landfill right here, working face. But there's a concrete demolition pile right here. They're not really sure how big it is. We have surveyed it, but we haven't done the calculations yet. But we think it's somewhere between 20 and 30,000 yards of concrete. By the rules of the NPCA, which I'm not 100% sure on, but Chris McCon is, they're supposed to do something with that every couple of years. I've been working for the county for 20 years, and I don't think we've done anything with it yet. So basically, they need to do something with that material. I've reached out to some local contractors in the area. It costs roughly $5 per yard to crush it. Using that, $5 per yard, the cost would be somewhere between $100,000 to $150,000 for a contractor to come in and crush that material. Estimated retail price of crushed concrete, 20 to $25 a yard, depends on where you're at. So we could take a material that we have to do something with anyways, use some cash of $150,000 and turn it into $400,000 to $750,000 worth of material. Go on the next slide. Well, what do we do with that? What we'd like to do, with the board's permission, is to put together a contract that the Public Works would administer. Public Works would use some of our cash reserves that I think we have an adequate amount with right now, and basically crush that material and pile it into two piles. One for the Public Works to use, one for solid waste to use. Solid waste would retain somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 yards of the material, the first 3,000 to 5,000 yards, and they could use that at their facility for the construction of their new shop, or whatever they need. And then we would remain owner as Public Works, all county, but Public Works would keep that other material, and we could use that to help in our operations for maintenance, which we've never had access to in the past, but it really is premier material that I think would service the county for years and years to come, having 20,000 yards of crushed concrete in a locked, gated facility owned by the county right next to our main shop. It's just, it's amazing. It'd be awesome for us to have that opportunity.
I know, through the township and so forth, I mean, there's always a sale value to that because townships are looking for it, you know, or even the ground tar. But the concrete actually works fabulous along your hills and steep edges, yeah, so it's a material that could be resold again too if the desire was ever there, but was something that would be nice for the county to have.
Could resell it, but we sure wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
We'd love to keep it, basically for use of ourselves. So with that, I guess I'm gonna put together a contract, go out and solicit bids, see where we actually are as far as the size of the material out there. We won't know till the end. Get those quotes and bring it back to the board for consideration of an award of contract. And then basically a budget request form allowing us to use that cash to help fund this project this year. And I'd like to do it basically this fall.
Lauren, I'm assuming some of this stuff has re-rod and wire in it. What, does that, is it separated in the crusher?
Yes.
Then what happens to the?
They have a series of magnets.
Okay,
As part of that process. When it's crushed, it basically pulls them out. There's a primary magnet and then a couple secondary magnets as it goes across the belt scale, and it pulls that up out of the material. When they crush that material, they don't want it thick because it won't pull it through a thick material. But if they keep the material small, it'll pull out all those.
so what's done with the scrap material then?
Solid waste gets to keep it.
Okay,
And then they'll use it, recycle it, and sell it as scrap.
okay.
Yep. That will all be in the contract that we'll write up. Good question.
I know when Chris talked to me, mentioned that, I don't know, a year ago or something, I said, well, talk to Lauren, cause I figured you wanna use some of it anyway, so.
We knew they had it, we didn't know we had access to it, so
Yeah.
when he called, I'm like, yeah, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
That was probably in January, February,
Yeah,
when we
something
first talked. And then I said, how, can we wait till this road meeting, and I can bring it up to the board for discussion? Good, I'm glad you suggested us and kept us in mind, so. And I think he's happy, because then he don't have to deal all the work.
Well, yeah.
We'll handle it, so. But that's okay, that's what we do, so. Average cost of asphalt, basically paving material. I've kind of kept a running total. It's kind of my own little pet project throughout the years. Asphalt is our #1 cost for our construction projects. You know, we spend millions of dollars a year on asphalt, so we better keep a good idea of where the costs are. And you can see in the mid-2000s, we saw just huge bumps. 2012, it went down. I think oil dropped. The market jumped back up. But this year, we saw a little decrease on our recent one, so roughly about $2 per ton, decrease. We don't always see that, with our current economic situation, current rise in oil. I think we were pretty lucky to get that $2 per ton decrease. Where it's gonna be next year, I hope it's down here, but it could be way up there, I don't know. But it's good to keep a track and see where our costs are going. Want to go to the next slide? Basically, an update on construction as we're moving into more construction-related topics. I just wanted to note, I misspoke when I brought up the detour agreement for the Brarville bridges. I thought it was in fiscal year 2022, because that was in their plan. I believe it's actually going to be constructed this year. I just wanted to make note to the board. I was uninformed. I thought it was based on their old plans, but I believe it's gonna happen this year. The other big MnDOT project in the county is the reconstruction of County Road, or Trunk Highway 27, basically from Midway all the way to the county line in Osakis. They are gonna use our system as a detour. We believe it is gonna be down County Road 2, maybe County Road 4, 11.
10.
I don't think they're gonna go 10. I think they're gonna go south, for whatever reason. So, and maybe they might use 10, they might change their mind, but. With that, there's a couple of key items that I've seen that I'd like to have the board be made aware of. And not that we as the Public Works has really control over it, but I just wanna make mention of it. So if we go to the next slide. This is a graphic from their construction plans, and this is the intersection of Trunk Highway 27 with 71. Now 71 goes at an angle, it doesn't go true north and south. Where 27 goes true east and west. When you come to a four-way stop, you usually like to have 90-degree angles. That way people can see both right and left. If you've ever pulled up going eastbound on 27, you really have to crank your head over, can you picture that in your mind? To see traffic coming up 71 to the north. So what they're gonna do is basically create kind of like a little S-curve or hook out, as they say, on 27. So they come to a new 90-degree angle, so that intersection will basically get realigned. And MnDOT is working on doing that right now. They're getting easements and putting it through the design
You
process.
should put a roundabout in there.
I don't know. I'm not gonna suggest that, but. The other thing of concern, this is, if you can picture Highway 27, this being the county line and this being the Lake Wobegon Trail Bridge.
Yep.
They have to replace that box culvert going underneath there, but they also have to replace
The bridge.
the Lake Wobegon Bridge because it doesn't meet the federal guidelines for height. I think it's supposed to be 16 feet, and right now it's
14.
14?
Yep.
Seen a few round bales laying there in the ditch once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually came back from Alec the other day, my son and I, and a semi got close and stopped.
Hmm?
And you could tell he's kind of looking like this to make sure he wasn't gonna hit. He looked a little nervous, but he snuck underneath there. So as part of that program, they're gonna be, replacing all that. They'll basically have to shut down the Lake Wobegon for that number of months and have people drive around.
Yep.
Really no good detour for bicycle traffic. They'll have to find their own way around. But none of that comes at a cost to Todd County that I'm aware of right now.
Right now.
Questions on MnDOT projects? Just kind of an update. So, moving to the next slide. Our gravel road maintenance plan, back in 2012-13, we realized our gravel roads were not great, and we needed to aggressively put some gravel back on them. We put together a plan to put at least 2 inches of gravel on every single county road, and over the 6 to 7 year period, we got it completed. So thank you to the board for providing us the money to accomplish that. I believe our gravel roads haven't been this good in a long time. They're not great. Especially right now with the frost boils and the wet weather, but I think they're really starting to go a lot better. So with that, we put together the next slide, and that is our next 6 to 7 years worth of graveling. Basically, it mimics what we just saw, graveling all the county roads. Try to do it on a 7 to 8 year cycle. And you can see on average, basically, with this plan, every 7.5 to 8 years, a road should get a fresh coat of gravel.
So County Road 89 would be on this year?
Yes.
So you're gonna re-kick gravel at what, you said 2 inches or?
2 inches. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
When are you gonna do that?
That's the contract we just approved
Okay.
with Broughton Aggregate. I believe the completion date is mid-July, right, Wade?
July 2nd, I think, actually.
Is it early?
4th of
Okay.
July, yeah.
So they're gonna start in probably pretty soon then, huh?
Yeah, they probably should be crushing the material right now as we speak and start hauling pretty quick, so.
Well, I talked to you, and I think Gary's got the same thing, some calls on that road. I got one this morning before the meeting complaining that it had ruts and everything else, and they're not frost boils, well, I said I haven't been up to see it, but I just told him we would talk about it at the meeting today and see what the plan is for that road, so,
You can tell them we're gonna gravel it.
yeah. Which, probably they want tar, but,
Even if, let's say, next year we got $1 million just dropped in our lap and you decided to pave it, having good gravel on there is not a bad thing.
no,
We put gravel on there anyways to use it as a base, so.
Normally,
It's-
we dust control that one too.
I was gonna ask if you dust control it, so,
Normally on.
so that should help quite a bit,
We usually wait a year after we dust control, cause, we found that the gravel is, green is the wrong word, but that's the term we
Yeah.
use.
yeah,
We let it set up a year before we throw dust control on there.
okay.
Otherwise, we feel that it kinda gets a little slimy, slippery, so.
And Madam Chair, you'll get a lot of calls when it gets like that, cause 95 was that way and.
Yeah, and then we don't dust control that anymore.
Right.
The citizens said we don't want it,
Yep.
so we honored that request.
Yep.
And backed away.
I did get contacted again, Gary, what's that church up? And I think we just controlled that, the one sits real close to the road.
We did that 1 year.
Yeah, we did.
60,
Salem? Is it Salem?
No,
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 60,
it's Trinity,
Oh.
something.
67.
67, is that it?
I'm trying, Balsam.
Balsam.
Balsam,
there
yeah.
you go. They
It was up there
were
somewhere.
asking for that request again because the church sits so close to the road there. Cause whenever anybody goes by, they get really a lot of dirt in there.
That's something we could ask our contractor if they'd go up there, if we
You
have
know,
some additional
that
funding.
request was put in, cause I think we did it that 1 year.
We
Made
did
a
it 1 year
huge
because they had
difference.
a,
They had a anniversary, 100th anniversary or something, I think it was, yeah.
yeah, that church, I think the front steps are in the right of way.
Yeah, very, very close to the road, yeah.
You wanna add that note,
Sure,
Wade?
yeah.
Thank you, cool, great. Next slide. This is our 5-year construction plan. This is the massive spreadsheet that looks out 5 years, has all the different projects, funding sources. Don't worry, I can't read it either, that's why I have it on the computer. Actually, what you don't see behind this spreadsheet is another 5 to 10 years worth of projects that we are planned out that far out, so we know where we're gonna try to be 10 years from now. We use that to help actually plan our maintenance operations as far as pipes and projects. But basically what we see is the 5 to 6 years you see right here, as far as when we start developing our projects. Next slide, so actually the better version of that, actually the one we put online, is more of a Word document version, and this is the projects we'll be doing this year. County Road 5, in the city of Long Prairie, from Highway 27 up to basically Daybreak, a mill and overlay project. 38 is a reconstruction, and we're gonna get to that a little bit later in the discussion. 12 is a federal aid project going from Long Prairie out to Swanville, bituminous mill and overlay. 14, a very similar project going from Briarville out to the county line. 56 we'll talk about later, City of Long Prairie project. County Road 92, it's a local option sales tax project. This is the project is being led by Stearns County. Since it's on the county line, they actually take care of that road for us. And I believe Central Specialties is doing that project as part of their large bituminous project. County Road 102, is part of our contract, going from Gray Eagle out basically to County Road 13 or out just south of the hub. And then these projects right here, 67, 70, 76, 78, and 89 are our gravel surfacing projects, and that's the one Broughton Aggregate's gonna be doing for us here in the next month. County Road 11 is the bridge replacement project in the city of Clarissa, just north of 71. And then we've got some miscellaneous other projects, our patching contract, our shouldering project, miscellaneous pavement markings, our ground and wet reflective striping, and our dust control. These three projects right here, I think we have our bid opening scheduled for tomorrow, right, Wayne? So assuming we get some good bids, we'll be bringing that up to the board for consideration of awarding a contract at the next board meeting. So overall, prices are good. We're hoping to deliver basically $7.4 million this year of construction projects.
Lauren, when do you have County Road 24? I just know that that road is just being really ground bad.
24 from 21.
Bertha to, yeah, or coming out of Bertha, going east.
Shut up.
So 24,
They just did that.
24
But-
from 74 to 21. So just be by our shop there. Is actually scheduled for next year.
But coming out of Bertha, and I don't know if you've been on the road lately, I don't know if it's the traffic or the type of traffic that's on there, but that
How much
car
further?
is just really, really getting eaten away.
24 from
Yeah.
11 to 74, so it'd be just east of Bertha, is scheduled for 2025.
How about coming right out of the city of Bertha? That's where it's really bad.
When did we just do that?
You
It
just did
wasn't
that a
long
couple, few years ago.
But if you ever get up, take a
Yeah,
drive.
we'll go take a look, absolutely.
Take a look,
Yep.
because it's, you could just, yeah, I don't know why it's,
15 or somewhere in that.
I didn't think it was that long ago either, but the road is really showing a lot of wear.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good thing, I'm glad you brought it up. So if it's really bad, what we do is we can put a patch on that, and we use this patching contract right here, as part of our larger bituminous contract, to put patches like that on. So
It
basically, it
just go
allows
out,
us to
take a
have the
look, yeah.
contractor to go in and just hit 1,000 feet of road
Okay.
here or there. And we can do that in the future, especially next year, since we'll be up in that area, to lay a patch across those. Good brought that up. We'll add that to the list to look at this summer. Next slide. So with this is basically, you'll see a color photo of the 5-year plan. The ones I think this year are the ones in pink, 14. Here's some of our gravels, 67's up here. 76 going down. So the next slide is kind of our bottom half of the county. Once again, 14, 12, 102. The one by Stearns County there are 92. And you can see the projects, basically, we try to keep them in a geographical area so we can combine projects together. We don't want to be paving a road in Gray Eagle and paving one in Hewitt. That's a long ways for a contractor to haul asphalt. So we try to keep them in a general regional area.
So, Madam Chair, I got a question.
Absolutely.
The interstate bridge on I-94 in West Union, that road going out there, is that County Road 91?
91 is south of there, that's 46.
Okay, it is 46.
It's getting bad.
That's really getting bad. So,
So if you look at our 5-year plan, in 2024, we have that listed
okay,
as a future project. And Commissioner Newman, once we spoke about the possibility of realigning 46,
yep,
what we'd like to do, once COVID is kind of gone away, hopefully, we'd like to put together a rough draft, a rough drawing, and approach the City Council of West Union to talk about realigning 46. 46 from the interstate up to town needs a lot of work. It's pretty narrow.
yep,
We'd like to widen the shoulders out, reconstruct basically the whole pavement right from that bridge all the way up and basically realign 46 to move 46 out of town and hook it there to the south.
Yep.
We just haven't had time to put together that information yet, but
Okay.
it is on Wade's list to do, to look at some of those numbers. One of the issues with that is obviously cost. And then ultimately, one of the other issues is who then owns the storm sewer in town there? And that'll be some big hurdles that we'll have to jump over or try to figure out how we handle that with the city of West Union. Since they're a very small community,
Right,
funding money is a big issue for them.
yep. And I was told last night they're broke. So, yeah. Okay.
But I'm glad you brought that up.
Mhm.
Next slide. Couple quick comments on some of our municipal projects. City of Grey Eagle, back in 2016, we entered into a cooperative agreement with the city of Grey Eagle. I can't believe it's been 5 years. We've aggressively tried to put together a project to actually bid in fiscal year 2018. For whatever reason, we just couldn't get the thing going. The consultant just couldn't basically get the project rolling. In 2020, we actually opened bids. The bids were way higher, $2 million higher than what we had money for. So they went back and rebid in the spring of 2020 and got the bid basically $1 million lower. And then the city went out and took that information out to rural development and got some additional money to help fund the project. They actually got to work last year and did a lot of the work on the side streets in Grey Eagle. They started work on our 102 here by the old high school. But this year they plan on starting back up again. If you've actually been through Grey Eagle right now, there's a lot of pipes. The contractor's back in town, and they're gonna complete the project this year and rip up basically 33 from right here by the water tower south, basically out to the edge of town. So that contract should be completed this year. Been a long time coming, in definite need of those improvements. Going to the next slide. Last year, if you remember, our bridge on 71 here, on Trunk Highway 71 was replaced. They detoured on 56. We knew this was coming. So with that, we've been working with the city of Long Prairie to put together a reconstruction plan of both 56 here by our shop, Riverside Drive, and also 38 going from basically the Burger King corner of stoplights out west to the curves, heading out towards Clotho there. We've been working on actually doing that contract this year. We jump to the next slide. Basically, they've got some pretty good ideas. We're putting the final touches together for this set of plans with the city's consultant, Bolton and Mink. And you can see the current cost for our cost at the county side. It's basically just shy of $900,000 for the replacement of this whole system here. 2.87 for the whole project, but that includes sewer and water, which the county is not responsible for. So there's a lot of water issues on this road, a lot of connectivity issues with this road, and basically we're gonna have to rebuild this road under traffic because we cannot shut down or hinder the operation of Long Prairie Packing. So it's gonna be a very time-consuming and expensive project. This cost right here is in our 5-year plan. It'll be funded by state aid. But it doesn't take into account in fiscal year 2022, the county, since we will see improvements along our shop here, we will be assessed around $48,000. So I intend to add that into our budget for fiscal year 2022 to basically pay that in full. We could, as the county, opt to basically make payments on an annual basis, and I don't know what they would be, but it'd be my recommendation to the board that we just pay it in full. And I'll recommend that in our budget process. Does that seem like a reasonable approach to that, or would you like me to budget that out for years to come?
I think if you got it, you might as well pay it.
You're gonna have to pay it anyways, so. And then with that, you know, that's, excuse me, obviously there's interest if we pay it over time.
Yeah,
So we'd rather just pay it in full. So with that project, we'll go to the next slide, 38. This is 38. Total project cost of $2.8 million. You can see there's a lot of feeder routes or feeder local systems being attached to that contract. We are not responsible as the county for those, the ones in yellow, orange, and green. We are just ultimately responsible for the main route here, 38. And our portion of that $2.8 million will be roughly around $850,000. Complete storm sewer, complete curb and gutter, sidewalk is the city's, but we'll be replacing the pavement along there. The city is looking at replacing actually the 3 bridges along Benowitz Creek that actually then lead to the Long Prairie River right here behind the lumber yard. We have to replace this one as part of the sewer project. So that'll be our bridge, but the city will be replacing a bridge here to the south on 3rd and one to the north there on First Avenue. If you kind of remember throughout history, they've had flooding throughout there, and they feel that by replacing these, it'll really help alleviate any flooding issues in the future. It won't prevent any massive flooding, you know, if we get the 200-year storm event, but more normal events, it should really help prevent those, because these really were choking points for Benowitz Creek. Obviously, if the Long Prairie River raises up, it'll continue to back water up, but these really should help that process.
Lauren, when you stated county responsibility, what was the responsibility for the 38 project? County's responsibility?
900,000.
No, 1.1, 1 billion.
164.
900.
Oh, excuse me, yeah, you're right, sorry, I was reading the, yep, 1.1.
I just wanted to correct you.
Yep, I'm glad you did. A lot of info rolling through the head
Yep.
today, so.
No
Yep.
problem.
So yeah, total cost for this year is $2 million. Now, we wanted to do that all this year. And believe it or not, we're really getting late in the game for letting a construction contract this late in the year already, even though it's just April. We don't even have the signed plans back yet. We're not even to that stage of the game. So what we think the city's gonna do, and what we're recommending, is that they actually construct 56 this year and do 38 next year. Kind of hold that over. So our costs will be $900,000 this year for 56 and 1.2 million or 1.1 million for 38 the following year.
Lauren, is 56 gonna be a 10-ton road
Both of them
or
will.
more?
56 will be 10 ton.
Okay. Is it
38.
Is it currently 10-ton?
Yes, I believe it is. Yep. 38 will be designed to 10-ton standards, but we sign at 9-ton because the portion to the west is not up to standard. We don't want to send 10-ton traffic out to a 9-ton route.
So, Madam Chair, Lauren, will we be responsible for like the curb and gutter?
We pay for a portion of it, but the maintenance is done by the city.
Okay.
We write that in our cooperative agreement, since they have the tools and the expertise to handle that. And it's basically their stormwater anyways.
Okay.
But as part of the stated rules, we have to help pay for a portion of that. That's just the way the game is played.
So all the crosswalks will be ADA compliant and all that?
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Yep. Next slide. One thing of concern that I thought I'd bring the board up is basically here is our fuel station on our shop. This is an aerial view. Here's our big sand pile. Here is the new cattle buying station for Long Prairie Packing. The sewer line actually runs basically from a gravity line from 56 here, underneath our fuel station, basically to a lift station in the southeast corner of our property. As part of this contract, as part of this project, the city's gonna route a new gravity line down 56 and move a force main out around on 71, which means this line right here will be abandoned as part of this contract. Our service line runs out the back side or east side of our building down south and connects up to here. So as part of this project, they have to reroute this line and come between the hoop shed or Kwanzaa building back out to 56 right here. You can see where it hooks back up in the center of our entrances here. So our sewer line will have to be rerouted and our whole parking lot will be dug up this summer as part of this project. The project will pay for it because it's not the county's fault they're relining the line, but our operations will be kind of hindered this summer since the whole lot will be tore up. We didn't know that was coming until about a month ago, Wade? Yeah. That was a nice, thanks for letting us know. Part of the design process. Jump on the next slide. Basically, this is the last segments that we're gonna go through here quick, and we'll go through it quick. Basically, our bridge replacement priority list, we bring this to the board for consideration every year. Wanted to make note of a couple projects. We head to the next slide. Our project on 11. This is the one in the city of Clarissa. We just talked about this. This one's ready for reconstruction this fall. We'll be doing that. That project's already been awarded. Our next slide is a project on County Road 21, the replacement of the bridge on 21 just north of 71. And here's a great picture of it going north. The plans have already been done. They've already been sent to the state, and basically we are waiting for funding whenever that becomes available. We think we should be able to reconstruct it in the fall of 2022. We just approved a design contract with Widseth from Alec to look at putting together a plan for the replacement of the bridge on 14 just east of the city of Barville. So we're working with our consultant to prepare those plans, and hopefully we can replace that bridge in the fall of 2023, funding dependent obviously. But that's gonna be a very large project, you know, well over $1 million. The bridge on 16, we know is getting to the point that we have to replace that. This actually here, 16 is farther east, northeast of Barville. This area here, why can't I remember the name of that creek right now? Turtle Creek. Why I can't remember that. Basically floods every year as part of that process. We're gonna have to raise the road a little bit. You can see the creek right here. Water comes up and actually flows over the road. We have to barricade the road. So when we replace this bridge, we're gonna have to address that issue so we no longer have to replace that. We can put barriers up there, we can put up temporary barricades, and as soon as we drive away, barricades are in the ditch. People drive right around them. So we wanna fix that so we don't have to do that in the future. We've done some borings there if you wanna go back one slide, we've done borings there in the past. There's really no bottom to that out there.
No.
So it'll be a difficult design, one that might get a little costly, so we'll have to really go through the design process to figure out even if we should or can't afford it. And I believe this is our last one. The bridge on 79, the old wooden structure just north of 62, like, you know, Horseshoe Lake out here. Right now, 79 kind of does like an S-curve here. There's been a number of crashes in the past. The last one I remember was a grain truck that tipped over a number of years ago. Kind of some weird horizontal curves, weird vertical curves. When we do get to the point that we replace that bridge, you know, it's on our list to replace, we'd like to consider basically either the blue or red line and move that bridge from here to the east and realign that road so it's nice and straight. We think it'd be a lot better design, probably a lot safer, but it may come at a cost.
Is that gonna require, two bridges? No, just one?
Just one, right there, yep. So the old one will be abandoned, the portion in gray here will be abandoned. We'll acquire a new right-of-way through here, and Lagos Road, I think it's Lagos, will then be extended out to meet up to 79 through here.
Isn't a lot of that, a lot of lowland and swamp in there?
It is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll have to, mitigate that, impact that we do to that wetland.
Bridge before that was a little further that way, wasn't it?
The old bridge, yeah, could have been somewhere like right in there. But we think if we just went straight, straight is always safer than curve. It really gets kinda hairy there when it's icy coming down through those curves. But this is a project we've got on our 5-year plan, probably 5 to 7 years out. Initial thoughts on that? Potential? The other options, we always could just keep it exactly where we have it and replace it as is. But when you have the opportunity to replace a bridge, it's always good to try to improve it. Yeah, 2027, so we're a good 6 years away. I think that was the end of the road. Questions, concerns?
Lauren, by me out there on 104, I know we've got the one road we barricaded off a couple times, but they keeps going around it. I think you know where I'm talking. I think you guys were out there flagging it the other day. Are you gonna straighten, what are you gonna do there? You know what I'm talking about? On the curve past Hollerman's there.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do something there or what? Cause they keep going around the barricades.
We could put more barricades up. Do we know who's doing it?
Well, the way it was flagged, and I thought you guys were out there, it looked like you were gonna put an approach across there for
I
them.
don't think that was us, was it?
I wasn't aware.
Somebody was out there flagging, I
You know
thought it
what
was
we're
you
talking
guys.
about?
Yep, I know exactly. They're using the old legs.
Yeah, yeah. And you guys, you had the barricade, then you widened the barricade out, and now they're still going around it. And I thought it was you guys out there flagging it, I didn't know what.
It might have been the township. I don't know if it was us.
I don't know.
I would kinda guess that would be the township. I think they worked on that before.
They took it out.
The township did. And
Well, in
then-
any sense, you know what I was talking about, there's no stop sign, anything, they're just coming right out on 104, and I told you before, somebody's gonna get hit there, because they don't realize they're coming out there, they aren't even stopping, so. Cause now they went around the barricades again, so,
Yeah. We can extend the barricades,
yeah,
but I'm afraid if we keep extending
well, they're
it,
gonna, yeah,
they'll keep going, so
I know.
we'll go back and look at it.
Yeah, I thought it was you guys out there the other day, so.
I-
It's been flagged, I don't know why, but,
And we'll reach out to the township.
yeah.
Burnhamville?
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any talk about any of this coming COVID money going for road constructions and so forth, Chris?
What I've learned so far is that, the water and the sewer topic has been listed within, the federal guidance, the very limited guidance. Right now, it's not even guidance, it's bullet points on like 4 things you can spend it on. So everybody is just waiting to hear, what can you really use it for? They're talking about lost revenue, so any
Yeah.
lost revenue due to gas tax, sales tax, whatever the case
Yep.
might be, capture that, and then that can become part of county dollars once you have identified. I don't know if I've heard specific to road construction. Definitely, so when we talk about the stormwater and those
Bridges does not follow, you don't know at this
I
point.
haven't seen it. I
Okay.
haven't seen that.
So that's something to,
We've heard, if if I may.
Yes,
There is gonna be a portion of that money funneled into transportation, not specifically water and sewer. And we think what we've been told is that it's gonna basically follow the Highway User Trust Fund distribution process, that's gonna be added to that.
Okay.
So we could see a additional deposit or increase either next year or this year. But like I said, it's just like, she said that it's just bullet points on a piece of paper. And until those rules come out, we don't know.
Have we actually gotten the money?
No.
not yet, but they're appropriating.
There's portions, I believe there's portions that have been signed off on, and then there's other portions that are still in discussion, so it's just hard to know where we're at with the full package.
Yeah.
It's very vague.
If and when that occurs, and it's a large dollar amount, I definitely plan on bringing it back to the board at a work session to say, here's what we got, here's our options, thoughts, concerns, guidance. We hope it's millions of dollars. Probably won't be that.
Then my one other question, I'm going to have to bring it up, is the snow plowing policy. Because this spring, the north part of the county had a late snowstorm.
Yep.
And it started late in the day. And by 8, 9 o'clock, the roads were to the point of being impassable. And your policy, you pull all the plows out at a certain time and they don't go out till early morning.
Our internal policy, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, is a typical case-by-case basis. So what happened that day, like you said, the snow came late, it kind of was going and continued out, and the roads are bad, absolutely bad, between 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Our crew had worked a full day, like they normally do. We sent them home with the full anticipation that they'd be called out the next morning to open the roads back up for business the next day. So we could get the kids to school, we could get businesses back going. And that's typically our operation. That way they can put in a full 12-hour day, starting at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, complete their shift, and by the end of the day, they have open roads. Unfortunately, from 8 to 2 or 3 o'clock, the roads are pretty tough. Reason we do that is typically most of the people are home. The greater share of the people are home. Not everybody, but most are. That day, the roads were rough, obviously. The next day, we did our typical operation. And by, I'd say, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a lot of our roads were actually dry. By 10, they were bare. The guys did a fantastic job that morning and got them back open. This has been our procedure for many, many, many years.
Oh.
Thoughts?
You know, if they, I guess the weather was forecast that it was going to be snowing that night, right? We got more than what we ever anticipated.
Yes.
Grant you that.
Can I speak on that, Barb?
Yeah, by all means.
I take each storm, I look at the forecast and make the best judgment to send the guys out. That particular storm you're talking about, we typically, I like to have the trucks on the road by 4 in the morning. I think they were on the road between 2:30 and 3 because I knew it was gonna be bad. But yeah, we can't staff like the state does because it's only safe that I feel that our drivers are in that seat at 14 hours maximum. So I try to look, sometimes we go later than 4 o'clock into the evening, depending on when the snow event is. But yeah, it's unfortunate, we aren't able.
And we got dumped on that
I know,
section up
but
there.
if you look at historically, I think that was one event out of how many, if you look at it, it probably fell into that, but, and it was wet and heavy. If had that been a drier snow, depending on temperature, it wouldn't have been that big an issue.
And I also believe we got rain before the
Right.
snow, and it was ice under the snow, which really made it.
No, that's actually a good thing that it snowed on the rain, because it actually insulates that. So that if we had went out there at 8 o'clock at night and plowed that off, the roads would have been treacherous, icy. This way, driving through snow, honestly, I've been doing this for 30 years. The snow actually insulates it. We were able to clean it up the next morning and got rid of that and applied a little sand to it. I feel was the best option that we did for that snow event. And to be truthful, I wouldn't change a thing from what we did. And I told Lauren that, because we're limited on traffic count. Lauren just spoke of it. We don't have that much traffic compared to morning traffic, school, that kind of thing. We only got so many hours to work with, and we plan it out. I plan it out to the best capabilities of our hours that safely can put our drivers on the road.
Then a follow-up question, I know like the township, they plow their roads if there's so many inches of snow on the road. What's the county's? You plow when there's so much snow, when that's, what's the
Case by
county's?
case basis, what the weather's gonna be, if it's, if it's a small amount, you kinda gotta drive them anyways, because a lot of areas will see drift. And I'm gonna tell a quick story. I actually took time one time and rode with, Neil Catterhagen one time, just to see what it was like. And we're driving and the roads are bare, and I'm thinking, man, why are we wasting our time driving out here, Neil? But I didn't say nothing. I didn't wanna be the guy that didn't know what was going on, so I learned just to be quiet. And we come around the corner, I remember this curve, and there's a bunch of trees, and there was a drift that high. And we drove all the way out there, cause he knew that's where it was gonna be, cause it's there every time. So even if there isn't a lot of snow, sometimes there's just those areas that drift, that we have to go out and attack them anyways. But generally, yeah, in the springtime, the 1-inch snow event, you still gotta plow it off. So the sun can get down and get to that black pavement and start working it off. Little, flurries, we usually don't go out, but anything over an inch maybe, Paul?
Yeah.
Typically are out there trying to get them. If we don't, we'll hear complaints.
Years ago, when I first started, you never went out for some of that, but there's so many people driving to work now. And it just seems like if you have snow events, once every week, you don't have many cars in the ditch. But give that 2 weeks where we don't get anything, and I guarantee you're gonna have people in the ditch the next snow event. It's just, that's the way it is. People tend to forget. And it'd be nice if everybody would, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we getting a lot of different nationalities driving on the road. And I think a lot of them have no clue what Minnesota driving is. And that is the truth. I think we've had some major accidents on State Highway 94. You just listen to the names, will pretty much tell you they probably don't have a clue of how Minnesota weather conditions can be. And that's one of the things we're dealing with here too.
We see, does everybody kind of know what a bell curve is? The old bell curve. The majority of stuff happens in the middle. We see more complaints and more accidents on what I call an inverse bell curve. The beginning of the year, when snow just starts, people are more upset with the snow because they just now have to enter the winter event. And at the end of the year, people want it to be spring, so they're more in a rush and more likely to get in an accident. Like Paul said, the ones in the middle, where people are just used to it, they give it the old Minnesota, I'll just deal with it, and they get through it. So it's kind of an inverse bell curve.
Madam Chair, I got a couple things. To go back to the stimulus, Commissioner LaValle from Grant brought it up Thursday night at our Rainbow Rider meeting about asking us if we were gonna use any of that money for roads, and I said I didn't know what he was talking about. So he's been working with Matt Hilgart from AMC for clarification. They're just waiting for the word on that, so if they hear from AMC what's going on with that funding, I'll try to let you know too if I hear anything. The other thing is, I just want to thank Public Works. It's been a while since we've met, for everything you guys do. Paul, I mean, when I have a constituent with a problem, you know, from Lauren to you, you guys get stuff done. I don't have to question it, whether it's out at the park. I mean, you just get stuff done, so thank you for that. It's greatly appreciated out there. One other thing I'd like to ask Lauren, if he would put it in writing, when we start having plats coming through, that what your recommendation is, and make that recommendation to the 5 of us, you know, saying, okay, this plat, this is what I think. This is my professional opinion on a plat. I really believe that we're getting too many cul-de-sacs out there. It's causing a lot of problems. 20 years down the road, we're gonna have problems because people are gonna go, why the hell didn't they put the road straight through? So if you would do that, it'd be greatly appreciated. That's all I got.
Can I comment on that?
Yep.
So the normal process, as I understand it, is the plat comes to is it the dirt team?
Yeah.
I think they call it, for review. Planning and zoning provides me the opportunity to comment on it. I review it. Most of them are pretty minor. And then I usually put together, if it's not an issue, I write back no issue on email. If it is, I typically write a letter or a comment and provide it to planning and zoning. But I sure can respond to that and CC the board
Yep.
as a whole with my response.
I appreciate
Does that seem
that.
like a reasonable solution?
Mhm.
Okay. Good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's good.
And my other question was, I was being told that they're doing these dirt teams virtually. So how the hell you do something virtually if you don't go out and physically look at it? So, do you do it virtually or do you physically go out and look at it on site?
If I know the area, I don't.
Okay.
But most times, 9 out of 10 times, I take a drive.
Thank
and
you.
go look at the site.
Good.
I stand out on the road and do one of these. Yeah, that looks good, that doesn't. And also gives me an opportunity to get out of the office.
Okay,
So
thanks.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But the actual meeting is done virtually, where we sit down as a group
Mhm.
and conduct it virtually. Usually it was in person years ago, but I think now with the COVID, they try to do it virtually.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank all of you for coming. For the work you guys do, we truly appreciate it. Hopefully, we can have another meeting come fall.
Yes, we would like to, so.
Is there any
Yes,
way I
it's
could get
nice
some
to
more of
have.
these, Madam Chair?
Yeah, 3 more.
Send them out to my townships.
You want me?
Yeah, if
'cause
you got any more of
usually you
them?
have the township meetings, and this year there's no township meeting anymore
Right.
either, so we lost that connection.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For the time you guys did to put this together for us.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just nice to see everything in writing and everything comes forward. It's good to have these.
So I'm gonna try to get a hold of Kenny Hayes on, fishing pier, otherwise I'll get a hold of Les. And it's, see if we can get a group together, because we gotta put the group up. And I'll take the tractor up there and at least get one floating dock in. Here, but,
Come around already.
yeah. They were putting docks in, what the hell day was that, Saturday? I was watching them, and I was like, God damn, that water's gotta be cold.
Just go to lunch and I'll get that out of the way, so. Yeah.
I suppose we'll have to finish our personnel meeting now.
Are we offline?